Hi, I'm Wilhelm Myrer. I'm the CEO and founder of Empower, and Empower is making a global plastic waste deposit system. And I'll talk about the circular economy and the tools we make to really make that work.
Wilhelm, it's great to have you today from Oslo, Norway. First of all, congratulations to your country for an amazing performance at the Winter Olympics. So I'm looking forward to your presentation. You know, the Scandinavia is leading the way on the circular economy. So I'm looking forward to your talk.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And definitely thanks for the congratulations there. I think it was a good Olympics. And I'll talk, as you say, about the other thing that's coming out of Scandinavia is really waste management and recycling industry. And the background for Empower was really that we were looking at how can we use new technology to solve the plastic waste problem. And one of the systems that really works is the reverse vending machine system, where you crowdsource kind of collection and segregation at source of PET bottles. So you take out the PET bottles from your waste, you bring it back to the supermarket, put it into these reverse vending machines, and they get the clean waste stream that is easy to recycle and keep track of. And they recycle around 97–98% of the PET bottles in the countries where they put in this machine. So it's really a system that works. And the company that started that back in 1970s was a Norwegian company called Tomra, and they are now in 40–50 countries and providing 60–70% of that market.
I've written about Tomra, and you know what's impressive is you're at 95–97%. Most of the world is probably at 5%. So again, that's, you know, Norway is way ahead. By the way, I interviewed one of your colleagues from SAP Foundry, one other startup in Chile. And what they're doing is slightly different. They're actually, they have a plastic container, and they're encouraging companies to deliver in bulk. And then they have vending machines where individuals can fill the plastic bottle containers. So in their case, it's reusing the plastic, right? Rather than returning it each time. So slightly different model.
Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of things we need to do, I think, to make this more circular and make sure we reuse and recycle and really create that shift from linear to circular, right? So that's a lot of good examples, I think, that are coming. So of course that's what we want to do with this as well, to really make take that way of recycling and bringing back the plastic and apply that to any kind of plastic anywhere in the world. And we want to make sure we can kind of set up digital collection points, or really set up incentive systems anywhere where we can collect and segregate at source different waste and make them into materials, right? So the PET bottle is one thing, and that's about 1% of all the materials. But for any kind of plastic, also other kind of materials like metals, like glass, paper, all of this need to be collected and brought into the economy again to avoid waste. And really that shift from a linear economy into a circular economy that we want to facilitate. And this is, of course, how the linear economy looks, right? Because the producers are not held accountable for what they produce. There's no system to collect what's put on the market. Just up to everyone to optimize their profit, right? To sell materials, and they're done with it. It's not their responsibility. And you end up with hundreds of billions of dollars materials worth that end up in nature, incinerated, or in landfills like this every year. And then you have this graph of amount of virgin material, virgin plastic that is produced every year, and that's just having exponential growth. We only had plastic for the last 60-ish years. That's really been growing, 60–70 years, and it's already full, and we can see it everywhere. So positive thing with this is that plastic is quite visual. You might have climate skeptics, right, that don't really believe in climate change. But on the other hand, if you look at plastic, there's very few plastic skeptics that don't believe in waste, because you'll see it if you go to the beach. It's a super visual, and it's hard to deny. So the good thing with that is that we really have a huge movement, right? Anyone from consumers to industry to regulators are pushing for a shift and to do something with this. So among those things you have at the moment is more than 400 producer responsibility regulations coming into place around the world. So and that's really putting the responsibility of what any producer puts on the market. They need to make sure they get it back in again, and they're responsible or held accountable for it. And there's also a lot of taxes on virgin materials to stop this growth, right? So people get incentivized to use recycled materials, and they get penalized if they keep using just virgin oil-based materials. That's really happening, and it's forcing all plastic producers, petrochemical companies to buy recyclable materials instead and try to get hold of it. And we have all these goals coming from the big companies like Shell and these, but also Coca-Cola, IKEA. Everyone has goals of being fully recyclable, using recycled materials by 2025 and 2030. And then that's the goals they have, but then reality is that we have had a linear economy where no one really cared, that people are paying to get rid of their waste. And that means that it's about 10% maybe of all the materials in the world that actually being recycled, of all the plastic that's being recycled. So opposed to where you have the reverse vending machines where you might have 97%, the rest of the plastic is not really recycled, and most of it is ending up in landfills, being incinerated into nature and into the oceans again. So even if we now have a demand side, it's still really a lack of infrastructure and data on how to get hold of this plastic. So that's the challenge, and that's where we come in as well with the digitization, that we really want to make sure we can track all the materials, keep that material in the economy, make sure it's segregated at source, collected and brought into kind of traceable material streams, that all materials are really brought back as supply into the market and matched with the demand. Ultimate goal is that all materials that have been used, if it's packaging or products, should come back into the economy and where it has the highest value to society, instead of ending up in nature and where it really is creating damage instead. And as I mentioned, of course, with the reverse vending machines, and maybe the differentiator with Empower and other similar companies is that we really started, as I said, with how can we empower those who are holding the plastic? How can we, as a reverse vending machine, how can we reward those informal sector that can do the segregation at source? If this is in Mumbai, how can people pick up plastic, deliver it to a collection point and get reward? And how can a business that is now paying to get rid of the plastic and paying the waste management company to do it, how can we instead just connect them with the demand side and help them get rid of this, but make sure it also ending up being recycled and keeps its value? So it's really what we try to do. And so then it's a tracking platform where we digitize any material streams and bring them into circular loops. So that's very much the technology, and I'll go into more of exactly how it works, but just first, this is kind of the journey we did since we started in 2018. We started doing these pilots where we set up collection around the world, collecting plastic waste, and we had 10 tons collected then. And in 2019, we started building the more tracking platform to make sure we also could know where everything ended up once it's been collected. And we had 50 tons collected. In 2020, we had the MVP of our platform ready, so we started to see now we can scale it up, and we had 500 tons in 2020, and then 13,000 tons being registered into the platform and being collected in 2020 to 2021. So it's like we had a 3,000% growth year on year from 2020 to 2021, and we see that continuing now into 22. So we're kind of getting ready to really scale up the solution and working with a lot of companies. Now we have users on every continent as well, and among them we've been doing pilots and projects with BASF and Dow, where they are looking at getting data on where they can get hold of materials, where can they find the plastic that they need into their production or pyrolysis plants or things like that.
What in Dow and BASF, what part of the enterprise do you deal with? Their manufacturing side or more of the recovery procurement side?
We are at the different sides of BASF, so both on the actually traceability side of it, which is related more to product passports and their customers needing that now in certain regions. There's regulations in EU where you, in the next few years, if you want to put the product on the market, you will need to prove where it's coming from. So supply chain due diligence. But also for Dow and BASF, it's been on the procurement side where they needed certain plastic type, but there's very little data on where to get it because it's a lot of informal sector that's running it and it's not easy to do it. So what we did there was kind of like this is data from Nigeria, where we have around 70 organizations on the platform that register in what they are collecting each day and what kind of types of plastic, and then we get this overview, right? So we see how much plastic is available, and then we can match that with the companies that are in need of higher volumes of certain material types. And then what we do, I mean, I'll do the solution as well. The reason why we can get this is that we have a system where it's like an Airbnb for plastic, right? So anyone in the informal sector, anyone who can collect plastic waste can register on our platform and kind of create a digital reverse vending machine, a collection point. And then they can register in the materials they have or are collecting or people deliver to them. And then we make that visible both for people that wants to fund cleanups, so they can create kind of a proof of what they collected and put in the pictures and the data, and we can match them with sponsors who want to buy plastic credits to remove their footprint. But we also match them then with buyers of the plastics. So it's kind of an easy way for anyone around the world to set up a collection point and really get materials in.
And who verifies the data? Is it self-reported or does somebody verify it?
It's self-reported as a start, so they can add in whatever documentation they have on the ground. But then the main thing is the next step. What happens once they are registered is that we also track it onwards and create kind of multi-party verifications. So it's possible to get the third-party verification, but it's also, I'll kind of show you the next is really the key if you want the working system is really the tracking and traceability, where you can track the material. So how it works is that someone sets up the collection center, like you see here. And then when they get waste pickers or consumers delivering to them, they do a digital handshake. And then they create an inventory at that collection center showing, okay, now we have collected 5 tons. When they send it on to the waste aggregator again, or the ones buying, there's a new digital handshake. And then we have the IDs of every part of that value chain. And we tag that data into a blockchain. So we have this immutable data point of which identities verify this as received at the collection point, what was the timestamp, which location. And then next step is when they send it on, you have new IDs verifying the same volumes. So you're creating this ledger that follows the materials all the way from collection, or even could be also production, into an end product again. So you can really create that story of the materials. And then, of course, we're also working like with in the SAP program on how can we make sure this is also integrated with existing systems, right? So you don't need to put things into a system 2 times, but you can really verify this data with what they already have in an ERP system or a production planning system, and make this as seamless as possible. So you really can start to track the materials from when they are collected, through the processing up until a new product with a product passport. I'll just show you how that looks, and then you really put them into a circular system.
In SAP, what is there a particular module you interface mostly with? Is it again, is it again procurement or?
Yeah, the production planning is where we have been looking now. So we both have been adding the opportunity to kind of do plastic credit, so you can offset the plastic that you can't cut yourself and really help fund collection of plastic, but also so you can use that for tracking the plastic you are using and sharing that data into a product passport again when it comes out on the other end. So that's and then of course we have these tools to help set up this also before and after the value chain and onboard kind of your value chain quickly. So that's kind of what we are trying to do, is make sure data can be collected and shared very easily, even in complex value chains. And so this is a kind of a use case, an example where we have an organization in Brazil, IWRC, and they are collecting both plastic and e-waste from cooperatives in Brazil. So they're working with 50 cooperatives who are gonna have thousands of waste pickers that are working to them, and they collect this kind of example is e-waste here, where they register that in on the ground, and then they track it through the processing with this up until the brand's buying it in the end, and they will be able to see that full journey of the materials. And then they're selling this to like companies like Hewlett Packard, who then will be able to show that what they're using is recycled materials, and they will be able to show that story again also to the consumers of the full journey. And of course, it's possible to for them to incentivize the collection organizations to collect their materials again and get documentation also how much they are collecting.
So it's not just plastics, you're also dealing with electronics, digital, electronic waste then.
Yeah, both electronic waste and plastic, but also aluminium and other kind of scrap metals that now starts to need the same kind of transparency and traceability and where it's coming from. So doing that. And what the brands then can do with this material when they get it, once it's been tracked, is to create this kind of product passports as well. So they will be able to take the data from that journey of the materials and put them into this kind of product passports you can put the QR code on the new product, you can scan it, and as a consumer, you will be able to actually see on a map where was my materials coming from. This is actually, it's not just a greenwashing stamp on my product, but it's actually possible to go in and verify where it's coming from. And if you're tech savvy, go in also to check on the blockchain that this is actually data points that are verifiable if someone wants to audit it. So then
it's like meet your farmer when you buy something. This is meet your original producer of what was
exactly
nice.
Yeah, meet your waste picker. Or there are kind of some interesting project we're doing now is with a football club in La Liga in Spain, where they are changing all the seats on their stadium. And what we're doing is tracking those seats, so they will we're working with recycler that will make them into new furniture again. And their supporters can then go and buy the old seat they used as a new furniture they can have at home. And they will be able to scan it and see that picture from the stadium where it was, and kind of follow that recycling journey. So it's kind of creating more value for the materials and products you have, right? And not just use and throw, but actually create several lifetimes and make sure it's documented and adding data to it. I think that's the key. So this is one product. Maybe I'll see if I can actually share with you. So this is on this bench that we have been tracking. You have a QR code, and what if you scan the QR code that's on this bench, you get to this landing page, which is then the product passport. And then you have our code here, and then it has the content. It has the different certificates of origin of the materials, plastic and the steel, that you can go in and look at, the assurance company who verified it. And then you also have this map showing where it's coming from. So this is the plastic in this one has been collected in the Arctic in Norway, and through beach cleanups. And then the collection organization have been taking pictures, so you'll have the timestamp, you'll have the ID of the organization who did it, and the picture and data that they uploaded when they did this plastic collection. And from the different cleanups they did, and you can then follow it through the aggregation site they have, through the whole production process, into new manufacturing, and finally into where they made it into new product again. And in this kind of project, also track the steel, which is then coming from Sweden, and our good neighbors who didn't do as well in the Olympics, but we still like them, so that's okay. And so we've been tracking then the steel as well, going through that same kind of journey and into this end product. So then, of course, when you buy this bench, you will be able to scan and see this full journey, and that's kind of the consumer looking end of our technology in that sense.
So I think Volvo has been using Swedish, they're from a steel producer, zero carbon steel. So similar, every industry is pushing towards showing more and more of the traceability and how their suppliers are being cleaner and cleaner. So this is great.
Yeah, it's definitely a mega trend, right?
Where was this seat from Spain? From the Spanish stadium?
Yeah, it should be. So this is just from the beach cleaners, but in Norway here. But I think in the fall we'll have the first products from this football club in Spain, and they actually have a sister club, which is a NBA club in the US. So I can't say who it is, but we're looking to maybe do something of the same there. So that will be very cool to try out.
And then sell it through your Swedish friends at IKEA, right?
Exactly. It's a lot of furniture companies working on this, so they need to do more. So that's good. Yeah. So I think that's pretty much sums up the product, right? So we have the tracking where we can track all the materials, and as a part of that, we also get data, of course, of where things are collected, and we also do the matching then with the buyers, as I mentioned there with DAO and BSF. They can also see where they can get hold of it. But the core is, of course, the traceability from beginning to end of the journey.
So your product is software. The traceability is software, right?
Yes.
You're not involved in any of the material handling or none of that. Okay.
No, purely a digital platform, and with our goal is that we should empower those holding plastic, and they should also be the entrepreneurs, right? So if you have a guy in Ghana that can set up a scrap shop, collect plastics, we want to help him to get funding to do it, and we want to match him with buyers that can buy his plastics, and he can hire more people and grow. And that's really our goal, is to give him the digital tools to do that. For sure.
And the individual collectors, the smaller businesses involved in this value chain, are they adopting it easily, or do you have to incent them to adopt it?
We do have a kind of the incentives there that they can create a proof of cleanup, like the plastic credit. So it's been quite easy to grow so far. So we do have kind of waste collection organizations in 40 countries using this, and yeah, several hundred organizations, and I guess about 10,000 people like waste picker that have been involved in delivering to this collection point. So it's and we haven't really built the platform ready yet. It's all still in a beta version. So we really, I think in the next year and now we have it looks like we will continue to grow kind of exponentially, and I think it's almost unlimited amount of waste out there, and the same amount of people that really need the job and want to do a meaningful job. So it's
especially when you say it's beyond plastics, right? I mean, aluminum, so many different things can be recycled.
Yeah, and what the world really lacks when you want to move from a linear economy to circular is that infrastructure to do the collection and segregation at source, because that hasn't been needed before now, but now the whole world needs it at the same time. It needs a lot of investments as well. So having the data to do that is kind of an enabler, I think.
Well, this is fantastic. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I'll jump through the last part. I was just summing up this. So definitely through the product, just the benefits like of using recycled materials on CO2, how you can do this digital matching to lower costs really on due diligence in your supply chain is all kind of digital, using the blockchain technology, and reducing time and cost on administration for verification of signatures and all these things that we can do with it. And I think, I won't talk through quotes and things like that, but I was actually at the end. So this is more the bragging slide that's remaining here. So
the blockchain part, how critical is that? What are you finding? People are asking for that, or it's kind of nice to have?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like we have gotten a lot of additional, I guess both recognition, but also marketing through having that, because we started in 2018 and did kind of the world's first cleanup with blockchain technology, where we incentivized a beach cleanup and giving people tokens as a reward. And through that, we got a lot of media, right? And got into Forbes and Independent, and that has, since then we almost have had incoming leads every week. And so it's been good from that side, which is not really, as you say, a reason to have it or a critical side of it. But as we now have built the whole tracking part, and the platform itself is mostly cloud-based, so really not a need to have the blockchain technology. The blockchain helps, and it reduces cost on the assurance part, because we have these immutable data points that can be audited, like signatures can be done digitally very easily, and it's tied to the different batches. But we could have built this without blockchain. What it really becomes interesting is kind of what we're doing now, when the next phase of this is, how do we transfer these values, incentives cross-border, right? How can we get more granular data from the informal sector in all these countries? How can we pay out the digital deposit fee, right? The reverse vending machines to anyone in Africa, anyone in South America and Indonesia, without using a banking system, because you're talking about plastic that has a potentially, very low value per person. So how can we send 50 cents or $2 to a person in Indonesia? And that's where we are using the blockchain technology, so that we really can send these tokens instead. And as the blockchain environment, I guess, infrastructure has been maturing a lot in the last few years, you will now be able to send the digital US dollar anywhere in the world at almost zero cost today. So that's kind of the next step now, is also using this for payments, for
but still at the consumer
financial
level.
solutions.
Still at the consumer level, right? From an enterprise perspective, nice to have.
Then you get in there, and it's really on the impact side as well. So what we're trying out now in Nigeria, we're offering the waste pickers a possibility to buy health insurance by having a deposit app which documents their track record and history of how much they've been collecting, and then they can get the health insurance or apply for a micro loan. And that's really where the blockchain technology, the ideas and the values come in as well, and as a real enabler for that part. So it's adds a lot of value, I think, but even more as we progress.
Great. Wilhelm, thank you so much.
Thank you. Correct. Thanks for having me.